Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Getting Started with Low Code. This is a Pipefy webinar, and we very much enjoy the topic of low code here at Pipefy. So welcome and thank you for joining our session today. We'll get started with just a couple of logistical items. Today, we are targeting a 1-hour session with 45 minutes of presentation and a full 15 minutes of question and answer at the end. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A box as we go along. We will be monitoring both. So just make sure you drop them in one of those. You are on mute. So if you have any dogs barking in the background or children screaming, they won't be joining the session today, unfortunately. Only my dog will be able to join, but hopefully not. He has a very large bone. But if you do have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll address them at the end of the session. Another question we get asked quite frequently, if the slides and the recording will be shared after the session, and the answer is yes, we will be sending out the slides and the recording after the session is over. So take a look for those in your inbox. If you don't see them and you are looking for them, check your spam or junk folder. Sometimes they get flagged into those areas. If they do, I highly recommend you mark Pipefy as a safe sender just so that it doesn't happen again to you. But if you'd like to share the recording with colleagues afterwards or just review the content again, the slides and the recording will be shared after the event. Give us about 24 hours to get those out. And one more thing for the audience to know, watch out for poll questions. We do have a couple of poll questions throughout the session to keep you guys on your toes, little interactions. So take a look for those when they come up. Sometimes if you're using 2 screens or dual monitors, they show up on a separate screen. So make sure that you keep an eye out for the polls as we go along. We encourage attendee participation. And with that, we'll get started. My name is Lindsay Marymont. I'm on the marketing team here at Pipefy, and I am happy to be joined by my colleagues, Mark Pinard and Quan Kim. Mark is a product marketing leader with over a decade of success in developing and executing global product launches and marketing campaigns with numerous companies throughout his career, most recently at Recurly and also Intuit and Xero. Quan is the director of go-to-market strategy here at Pipefy. He has worked for many high-growth B2B and B2C companies, contributing to better workflows and processes for their go-to-market strategy, in addition to leading initiatives of strategy and growth at leading companies such as Recurly and Goldman Sachs. Quan has spent much of his career as an advisor for various high-growth startups. So we are very lucky to have both of these 2 gentlemen here with us today. Excited to hear what they have to say and get started with our session. Just as a quick introduction, here's the agenda we plan to cover for this webinar. We'll first talk about what is driving the need for low-code solutions in the market today, kind of why we're here and why we're talking about this very important topic. We'll talk about low-code and BPA, 2 concepts that work together but can be oftentimes confused. So we'll just clear up a little misunderstanding of there and make sure that we're all looking at this through the same lens. Then we'll talk about how to get started with low code, what everyone is here for today. So a step-by-step guide of getting started with low code, preparing your organization, and some tips and tricks along the way. And we'll leave you with some parting thoughts, key takeaways from the session, and then we'll address any questions from the audience that come in. So again, feel free to drop those into the chat or Q&A boxes for those that join late. We welcome any questions that you may have along the way. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it off to Mark.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. Really looking forward to some great content to share with you. So what is driving digital change and how did we get here? For the next slide, to kick things off, I figured we'd take a step back in time with a little history lesson on the topic. And the reality is that the influence of development of technology, digital change has been something that has been coming for years, and the pandemic really just pressed the fast forward button to get us where we're at today. All industries across all markets have in some way been affected, but let's take a look at a few that have been affected the most. So if we look at like Netflix, right? The first experience of going to the video store and kind of selecting your DVD for that Friday night movie, to the ability to order DVDs online, get them in your mailbox, and then to a complete streaming service that is available right from your couch. Apple is another great one. It's really the notoriety is from providing physical device from desktop computers and iPods, iPhones, iWatches, really anything, to digital streaming services and Apple TV. And then over the pandemic, we've seen this uptake in e-health, in which our usual inpatient checkup with the doctor has been made completely virtual, with every part of the visit, from checking our vitals to ordering and receiving medication, is all now completely online and digital. And then lastly, another great example that's not on here is the restaurant industry, where the usual skipping cooking at home is, going to a restaurant, where now you can actually have the option of just food service deliveries that can be placed and dropped off right at your doorstep directly from your phone without you ever having to leave. Digital change, as I mentioned in the previous slide, is nothing new, but the methods to managing these changes continue to bring challenges for business leaders. The pandemic didn't just highlight the importance of resilience and change, but it also tested the practicality of teams' ability to adapt both to external and internal events and the speed to which they can actually move. It is no longer about just providing a better product or experience to your customer, but internally it's about the efficiency and effectiveness of workflows and collaboration, and how you actually work together with your teammates. It is what's top of mind for executives today. How can we rely on and adapt to technology to make our teams more productive and then increase that bottom line revenue growth? What tasks can we automate or make more efficient that immediately unlock bottlenecks? And then, as a big part of doing this, is overcoming the implementation headaches and costs of getting started, and then the internal mindset adaptation that comes with change in general. The pandemic hit us fast, sending many companies scrambling to adapt to something that they had hoped they had many years to figure out. But now they no longer have that time to rely on slow implementation and long project timelines to implement that change. And I don't know if anyone's ever gone through a Salesforce implementation, but it can be pretty a heavy lift, and it does take a lot of time to actually implement and to get used to, and then to adjust to the way that your actual workflow works. Business leaders basically had to figure out a better way to put the power back in their team's hands, and to give the ones who are utilizing the applications the ability to build and customize the workflows to how they work, and not how another other department thinks that they work. So with heavy customization that requires IT or dev time to complete, they just did not have the time to be able to do that. They needed to be agile, and they needed to be able to move fast. And for companies who did not adopt this, it became the real competitive differentiator. They were able to get back to focus on what they do best and create an amazing experience for the customers. And less was on the focus of how do we support this new way of work, and more on how do we capitalize on it. In the old saying, what doesn't kill us but only makes us stronger, for those that had adopted a digital first mindset, they were able to hit the ground running and really use it as a way for them to break out ahead of their competition. At the recent Gartner Digital Workplace Summit, we heard the latest analyst data that continually reinforced the message that hybrid work models and applications are not slowing down at all. They're actually accelerating at a pretty rapid pace. But with that comes the challenge of keeping teams productive by being able to work closely together without the ability to swing by your desk, if you will. Processes become challenged by adding more bulk and then unnecessary steps for the lack of in-person overhead to manage these. And then to solve for this, we've added more tools and more apps, and have created a massive backlog for IT support. We can no longer rely on developers or IT to understand how our workflows are executed, and then to constantly make updates in order to improve the efficiency for how we work. This has a new digital change, as the shift has led to pushing employees outside of their comfort zone. And now many are scrambling to figure if things are changing internally. Maybe it's time for them to make a life change or make a career change outside of their company. I'm sure by now we've all heard of the Great Resignation, and the companies who are slow to adapt to this digital mindset are left with employees who are unhappy, disconnected, and then open mind for a change for the better. And as organizations, we need to keep pace with these things to ensure people have the right tools to do their jobs, and to do so without hindering them with frustrating red tape and overhead. Gartner believes by 2025, organizations that are running inflexible and poorly performing critical customer-facing business processes will suffer more than a 10% loss in market share due to bad customer experiences. And because of that, from a department level, we are seeing a digital change across all departments, but HR operations, finance and revenue operations are a few that we are seeing frequently at the top of the list. HR operations departments are honestly the ones that remote/hybrid work has really pushed to adapt the fastest. Think about all the things that we had to change or adapt to. The influx of benefits and sick time requests increased due to COVID-related illnesses, rapid change of employees moving around the country due to being remote, and then the payroll requests and changes required to support that, the influx of managing offboarding requests as a result of the Great Resignation, and then employees deciding to take their skills elsewhere. And on the same time, the influx of new job postings, recruiting, employee onboarding requests due to replacement and new hires. And then the list goes on and on. But the end result is employers are scrambling to do everything they can to keep employees happy and engaged. On the finance side, think about like an influx of spend requests to support remote employees, new equipment, new tools, new home office setups, much heavier requirements and a backlog of invoice and bill processing as a result of that. And then budgeting and spending management in relation to hiring and leaving of new employees. And then revenue operations, it's basically the same story. All sales associates are now remote, so the management of their activities and ensuring new customers are given that white glove treatment as part of onboarding does require digital resources to be able to support. And then supporting the new customers by tracking and managing their onboarding and then ongoing customer support requests also requires a new set of tools that weren't in place previously. Lastly, education and training are always important, but being able to support this remotely can be challenged with a team that does not have the proper tools to do so. So you all get the idea of where this is going, but the lack of proper digital tooling leads to processes and workflows being supported by duct tape spiderweb of emails, Slack messages, spreadsheets, Word docs, and so on. And that ends up leading to drop balls, missed deadlines, broken communication structures, and worse is unhappy customers and then missed revenue targets. So what are we left with? How do we solve this? There's definitely an up and coming category of software that was thinking ahead, known as low code. You're probably saying to yourself, okay, low code, what sort of weird pixie dust, leprechaun, unicorn are you talking about, Mark? In the literal sense, low code is a visual approach to software development that optimizes the entire development process to accelerate the delivery of applications. In the figurative sense, it really allows the end user the ability to make changes to their applications with little or no support from IT or development. What's the value in this? So think about the freedom to create and build processes and workflows that you know will create efficiency and productivity of your team. Plainly speak, it allows the team and the people that are actually using the workflow or application to be able to adjust it to how they feel like it's the best fit for what they do. And gone are the days of the long and costly implementation times that deliver applications, which are constantly needing to be changed and updated or tweaked to work in that manner. And this creates less stress and then more time focused on collaboration and getting things done and upwards of productivity. Happy employees who are supported by tools and processes that truly understand the role, work streams, and activities. And then the upside list goes on. But although low code is not new, it's been vaulted to the front of line of digital change. It's a necessity in order for companies to support this new remote hybrid workforce, and then for them to have the ability to stay agile in a continuously changing environment.
All right, as promised, let's launch our first poll and see from the audience, how would you gauge the awareness of low code in your organization? So you should see a poll pop up on your screen. We're ahead of our time. We've been using low code tools before it even had a name, or maybe you just got started implementing low code tools. The outcome remains to be seen. Or the third option, there's general awareness, but no adoption. And for those of you in the back, what's low code again? Hopefully we don't get anyone in that realm, but my guess is we'll see a pretty big distribution. What do you think, Mark?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that the ones in the back don't need a reminder this soon into the presentation.
All right, we'll give everyone just another second or two. Make sure everyone gets a chance to submit their responses. All right. So it looks like 2 and 3 are pretty tied. Either people are just started implementing low code and haven't yet seen the results, or general awareness but no adoption. We do have some people up at the top. They've been using low code for quite some time, so that's good to see. All right.
Awesome. So the next phase of this is obviously the bold low code, and then how does BPA fit into the picture of this? So I'll start to go through a little bit of that. So BPA, just recently Gartner has replaced its legacy category of BPM, or business process management, with a new category known as BPA, business process automation. They made this transition because they realized that BPM was really about a single solution or tool and less about the set of automation tools, processes, and people required to run the processes and workflows. BPA does a much better job of connecting the dots across the technology, the cross-department people, and then the processes required to support it. BPA tools help manage the complete lifecycle of a business process automation initiative by providing capabilities to map, execute, and orchestrate people, applications, and automation technologies needed for successful end-to-end business processes. Process automation in general has always been a key pillar for digital transformation, and the rapid changes in operating environments, like COVID and Brexit, have brought a renewed sense of urgency to get things digitized. And then with the combination of BPA tools and then low code implementation, we are starting to see a drastic market shift towards business-driven automation as enterprises are becoming increasingly business-led rather than IT-led, which I think is incredibly important. So with that said, you're probably asking, what about IT? How does this add up for IT? What this means for IT is that you're seeing the rise of transformation leaders, digital strategic process improvement people, organizational readiness roles, and all to help ensure digital transformation kind of runs smoothly, and that the dots are connected across departments, workflows, and processes. Because of that, there's also a rise in what Gartner is calling fusion teams that consist of the IT team, digital transformation professionals, department citizen technologists, business users, and software engineers, basically to get some of these systems up and running, tested, and ensure that there's a heightened productivity that goes along with them. They're basically they're focused on putting the right tools in the department's hands and then working with them closely to ensure alignment to business outcomes. This also offers IT the chance to build stronger connections within the company and then influence strategy and purchasing decisions. With low-code technology, IT now has the ability to better control problems like shadow IT and then the inherent security risks that come with some of these applications getting out there. Digital transformation is basically a chance to understand what applications employees are using and then review the most popular apps for firm-wide tech stacks. This allows IT to take a firmer control of cloud tech without alienating users with heavy-handed policies, and allows them to build applications that perfectly fit their workflow. And then IT departments are now more than ever thriving as key players in business-changing projects, and low-code applications are the best tools for those success.
All right, with that said, let's launch another poll. So based on that information, poll question number 2, where does application innovation live within your organization? It's an IT problem, or maybe you have a dedicated team for apps, kind of what Mark was just referring to, the fusion teams, separate from IT, or each division does its own application maintenance and development. Maybe there's someone dedicated within specific teams that are responsible for this role. Or finally, we don't innovate our apps, and hey, that happens sometimes too. So let's hope that's not the case, but let's see what the poll from the audience suggests. Give everyone another couple seconds here. All right, looks like the results are in, and it looks pretty clear that it is majority an IT function where application innovation lives in the organization. All right, that is very helpful to know. And now we'll get started with low code and give you a step-by-step guide to readying your organization.
All right, thanks, Lindsay. So here I'm going to go over some tactics on how to think through what it looks like to deploy low code solutions for your company. So let's get started. All right, so when considering adding low code solutions, there are typically 5 steps to think through. The first step is laying the foundation. The second is to build your team and programs. Third, you want to plan your roadmap and execution. Next, anticipate any challenges and pitfalls. And last, know how to evaluate and scale low code solutions across your organization. So let's go into the first step. First, you have to understand if it's a good fit for your company. Is there a culture of being agile? Is there support that align around business goals? Are there company initiatives to empower business units with support of IT? Also, is there a culture of improvement and training? And lastly, are you forced to choose between legacy systems, or is there an appetite to test modern applications? Next, you want to identify your resources, budgets, and constraints. So most companies today have developer resource constraints, and I think everyone here can have experienced that at their company. So with demand increasing from all the business units, IT has been dealing with a growing backlog that makes it harder to support every request coming in from other business units. This can result in many projects not getting prioritized to help the departments run more efficiently. So there's also cyclical macro conditions like we're seeing right now that may include initiatives such as cutting operational expenses that could affect you. And third, decide on which areas to prioritize. So understand how projects are stack ranked in your organization. So an example here is when a company has specific objectives or OKRs, for example, for the year, if there are core processes that are more mission critical that need dedicated developer resources, this is where low code can help augment developer resources and assist other business units with their needs. Next, build the business case for why you need low code. So figure out the area of the business you're looking to improve and quantify the challenge and the pain that you and your team are having. So it could be that a process is very manual, which is resulting in costless mistakes. Quantify the cost of those mistakes. So what's the cost if you need developer resources to custom build versus a low code solution? So this is your ROI case, and align these low code activities with the business goals. Last, get the stakeholders to buy in. So after building this business case, you need to get buy-in from all the stakeholders. Here you can rally support to build out a program, or if you want, you could pilot a use case to later scale across the organization if it's proven successful. So this is where partnering with IT as a strategic thought partner is going to be a huge advantage for you. Building a team. So one of the trends we're seeing with many companies is the creation of this center of excellence. So you're seeing this with data and sometimes even recruiting, but you're starting to see more with business process and operations where low code solutions can provide a nice fit. So here you should create a tight partnership with IT because IT wants to align with these business priorities. This allows IT to be more of a proactive strategic thought partner rather than a reactive blocker. So in addition, you'll start to hear more about the ideas of fusion teams, as Mark mentioned before. This can include titles such as citizen developers, automation experts, digital operations, and business technologists. And they're leading these low-code initiatives within modern companies. Next, you want to identify the stakeholders. So we just talked about partnering up with IT as a strategic thought partner, but also include SecOps, operations, other subject matter experts, and other business units, individuals that will be the users of these low-code solutions. So next, create a system that can be scaled and replicated across other business units. So create a program. So HR may want to leverage the same low-code software used by finance to reduce the manual chaos and provide more visibility for the team and the company. So you could start by building a proof of concept for a program and just iterate from there. And then lastly, educating and training. So continue refining that program. Examples could include, how would you onboard new users to using this low-code solution? So how do you partner with vendors and other solution experts to get support and product updates as needed? So there are 3 areas here that you need to consider when planning out your roadmap. So first, identify which process you're looking to improve. And this is good because you need to prioritize the low-code project, and because you want to get the budget to the highest impact area first. So this is an example of an employee onboarding process. Over the last few years, as Mark mentioned, many companies have gone remote. So this was a common use case for many IT departments looking to onboard new employees. So here, you first map out the manual process that is happening today, understand all the workarounds for each step, and plan for the nuances of how things are getting executed towards an outcome. Next, how do you choose the right platform? So 1, make sure you have tight security, governance, and compliance. So these are table stakes when considering any low-code platform. So you want to be sure to get ahead of this before it becomes a bottleneck later in the vetting process. Next, speed to value. So an example here would be to determine how soon you would need to get up and running. Is it going to be 1 month? Are you expected to get up in the next 2 quarters or a year from now? Some low-code software is going to require more developer support and customizations than others. So this is a key consideration. Agility and change management. So is the team migrating away from a core system of record to, say, a new platform? Salesforce, one example, SAP. I mean, there's many considerations like within that decision. So you want to make sure if you're going to migrate to a different system, it's going to be seamless. And that goes to integrations and extensibility. So if you understand your tech environment, do you need to extend the capabilities from legacy tech? So one example here is if certain modules from your legacy tech would require, say, like a 6-figure investment plus developer resources to implement versus leveraging a low-code solution, right? And then lastly, like, is it scalable? Do you get vendor support? So can this solution work across other departments? Is this company in a good financial position to provide ongoing support? Do they have great documentation? Do they have a great community? And are there enough solution experts to help out when you're stuck? So how do you measure success? So here are some examples how our customers are measuring improvements based on the following calculations. So examples include increases in how fast a request is getting processed, reduction in errors, time to value from using low-code software, number of hours saved, and much more. And in this next slide, one of our customers, Vindy, Vindy is an online payments financial tech company, and they transitioned from a manually controlled customer onboarding process to using Pipefy as their low-code workflow management software. So after a short period of adaptation, the Vindy's team started to see results. And here are some ways they were able to quantify the results. So next, how do you anticipate challenges and pitfalls? Because low-code is not the silver bullet for every problem out there, right? So there are 3 main considerations here to anticipate any challenges with a low-code solution. Number 1, and this is a big one, first is preventing shadow IT, not following a process and partnering with IT. And you've seen this, it can result in rogue software, right? That could lead to the next item, which is a lack of security, governance, and compliance. So as we talked about earlier in choosing the right platform, this is critical, pretty critical in the vetting process. And the last point is when a workflow or process has increased in customization needs, most low-code platforms will have some limitations. So understanding where these constraints are will allow you to get ahead of any pitfalls in the future. And planning for this is also going to be very critical. So how do you scale this across the organization? So this is the last step in the consideration process. Once a low-code software or jobs to be done can be standardized in one department, think about how can you scale this across the organization? This is where something like a request management use case can be replicated across departments. Also, having that center of excellence team, it's going to enable efficiency since they will be the go-to thought partners when other departments are looking for similar solutions. And what does it look like when you can scale a low-code solution throughout the company? So this is an example from Blooming Brands that leveraged our low-code solution across 12 different departments. So before using a low-code solution, they had a lot of manual processes. They were using phones and emails and messaging apps, and things were getting lost and time was getting wasted. And it just required a lot of human capital to move messages and communications around. So there was no standardized request intakes, and the process lacked control, which IT did not like. It also lacked visibility and transparency. So no one knew what was happening. So the data was decentralized and there was no audit trail. But after implementing a low-code solution, their intake portals were all centralized for incoming requests. And they also had the ability to track metrics and generate dashboards for visibility. So this improved and controlled the process and was utilized across all the departments, so 12 to be exact. And now I'll hand it back to Mark for some final thoughts.
So let's go through some of the actual key takeaways. I know that we had discussed a lot of like the digital change stuff, but on top of that, I think the most important parts are like the development of apps are obviously key drivers in the digital transformation world, but IT teams can't keep up. So they're handing over the keys to business users in order to provide speed and agility. And I think that's a huge point for us to realize coming out of this. Low code is that middle ground where IT kind of meets with the business user to work together on a solution that allows them to build solutions and processes that they know will work. And lastly, I think and most important is that the business process automation is a bridge the gap between strategy and execution. And that's combining BPA and low code gives the freedom back to the business to refine its processes and operate in a way that best suits their department. And then BPA is that automation process that they're creating through application development to support this. We would not be if we did not do a shameless plug for product at Pipefy, but Pipefy is a low-code business process automation platform that allows IT to put the power of customization into the hands of the end user, much like we've discussed today. Because Pipefy is an incredibly easy to use and easy to customize process automation solution, it really can be used for any use case. But where we're seeing the highest uptake is across finance, which we had discussed in the webinar, and more particularly procurement, accounts payable, or things like facilities requests. In HR, recruiting, employee onboarding, provisioning, as well as HR requests are the biggest use cases. And then customer success, customer onboarding, request management. And then lastly, on the IT side, process excellence, work management, project management, or even change management are some of the biggest use cases that we're seeing that Pipefy is able to fill. So if you are looking for an easy to use and easy to implement solution to improve your processes at probably a quarter of the cost, I definitely encourage you to get in touch with us.
Right, so we'll do one more little quick poll. Just want to get a sense from the audience if you are interested in any of the topics that we've talked about and want to see talked with one of our excuse me, one of our representatives, just let us know in here and we will get in touch with you directly and carry the conversation on. So if you'd like to talk with somebody, get a customized conversation, and go through one of your specific workflows and how this might be applicable to you. I know we've thrown around the term low code a lot and some of the digital change, but and we've even given some examples of specific workflows, but everything's different for every organization. And there might be something that you're particularly looking to automate or looking on ideas of how to customize. So we're happy to walk through that and see what that looks like for your organization. All right. And just to give everyone kind of a heads up, if you want to continue the conversation, again, we do love talking about low code and we very much appreciate the conversation and some of the different areas of low code because there are many facets to this concept. So if you are interested, we do these webinars every month. Make sure you follow us on LinkedIn. You can check out our events page that has a lot of our past webinars. We featured an analyst from Forrester in one of our recent webinars. We've also brought on customers to talk about some of these different areas and some of the things they've seen within their business units. And we've even heard from IBM in a recent webinar about hyper automation and how that matches with low code to provide a whole different element of BPA. So feel free to take a look at some of those and again, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn if you want to keep up on our next and upcoming webinars. We do have quite a few coming up over the course of the year. And so you are more than welcome to sign up, join, follow along, and we welcome everybody in there. So with that, as promised, we have time for questions and answers at the end of this presentation. So if you have any questions for our presenters today, Mark and Quan, thank you both for all the information you've provided here and walking us through each of these concepts step by step. So please enter any questions into the chat. First things first, we did get a question if we are sending out the slides and recording. We do always get asked this, and we mentioned in the beginning, but for those that may have joined late, we do send the slides and recording to everybody that join the session. So if you are looking to watch this again or share with colleagues, we will be sending that out automatically to everybody. And so take a look in your inbox for those within the next day or so. If you don't see them in there, make sure you check your junk or your spam folders, and it may have landed in there. If they do, we definitely recommend you mark us as a safe sender. So that way, any further communication that comes from Pipefy, you will get it straight to your inbox. So take a look for that if you are interested in viewing the information again. All right, the first question that has come in, we have considered low code for our organization, but we struggled to get buy-in from our IT team. I know we talked about the relationship between IT briefly in the beginning. So any recommendations or ways to show the value for IT? This might be a good one for you, Quan, to answer, and then Mark, I'll let you add on anything you may have missed.
I can take that. Yeah, so I think two areas to consider, as I mentioned before. One, building that business case. So tying that outcome you're looking for, what is the business value, and making sure you can quantify that. And then two, address any concerns around that security, governance, and user permission. IT wants to have good control and visibility available to them in any type of platform that they're vetting. So you want to try to get ahead of this to reduce any friction during the vetting process. So those are the 2 points I would call out.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, I think it's just like continually adding value and like ensuring that like whatever tool that you're utilizing, you are being able to be more productive with it, and then showing, like Quan mentioned, tying that back to the business outcomes. I think for IT in general, this is a relatively different mindset change for them. So it's just getting them kind of over that hump and then working closely with them to adopt to it. And I think that once they see there's no security concerns, there's no governance concerns, and that things are running smoothly, the actual adoption will kind of accelerate from there.
Excellent. And the next question that came in, what if we already have ServiceNow in place? Is low code still a good option for us?
So the answer is, it depends. But the considerations can include, but not limited to, what is going to be the cost of the module, the time to deployment, how much developer support do you need in-house or from ServiceNow, that's required for like any type of custom coding needs, right? Are you going to need training? I'm sure there's more, but the bottom line is you need to judge this within the context of your business and your team and how they operate and if it makes sense.
Yeah, just to add on, I mean, it's taking a look at your tech stack and understanding where the fit is, right? I think because Pipefy is so flexible, it does have the ability to mold and work along ServiceNow, but to Quan's point, it all depends.
Makes sense. And I think we can agree that in place of ServiceNow and that one, we can insert other systems or platforms and have a pretty similar response. All right. Another question that came in, a lot of our processes are not modeled out. What are some of the common processes you see teams starting with low code? Mark, maybe that one is one that you can handle.
Yeah, and I think that this comes to identifying the biggest bottlenecks or pain, what the biggest value of putting in together a much better process is. Where we've seen and identified within the webinars, like, for instance, HR is obviously a huge one that's been impacted by COVID over the last few years with the, comings and goings of employees and like the benefits requests and everything else that goes on with it. We've seen a lot of companies actually start to model that out as their first kind of step into process improvement, process change, and allow kind of the HR department, because it's the biggest bottleneck or pain point, to kind of be the leaders of the change. And anywhere across from recruiting, employee onboarding, provisioning. But the biggest one is that we've seen right now is HR requests. So like kind of like that service request management, if you will. HR is just getting inundated with requests across the organization, and those are typically coming in from email, Slack, they're tracked in spreadsheets, whatever that might be, and they get lost. And a lot of those requests are extremely important. So people are utilizing Pipefy to kind of be that source of record and be able to organize and collaborate with other people within the organization. And Pipefy has been doing a really, really good job at that. It's a little bit easier of a modeling for them to be able to get that set up because there's not a system in place in the past, but that's a great jumping off point. Finance on the procurement side, because there's an influx of requests for purchases across all different products and softwares. It's a little bit more difficult because procurement is typically a little bit set and lengthy process that goes through multiple teams and areas, but that's something from a modeling perspective that we would recommend too, and we've seen a lot of successful organizations using Pipefy for.
Excellent. Thanks for that response. All right. It doesn't look like there are any other questions that have come in. So with that, we can wrap up today's session. I will leave everyone. So there are some links in the chat if you want to go ahead and grab them before we close out today. If you are interested in following us on LinkedIn, I know it was quick on the slide, but I've dropped the link into the chat box. That way you guys don't have to memorize or type it out. But again, we share all kinds of useful information, articles, that kind of thing on our company page. So feel free to follow us. And again, our events page is chock full with previous sessions that have topics and areas that might be of interest. So feel free to take a look there at what's been happening and what is yet to come. And if you do have any other questions didn't want to ask on this forum, we encourage you to get in touch with us through our contact form. We're happy to follow up with you on any questions that you may have or things that come up as you digest the information that we presented here today. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, Quan, for your time today. And thank you everyone on the line for joining us. We really appreciate everyone and your attention today. And we hope you have a great day and enjoy your low code modeling.